So today we're doing this outside. I have some kids running around inside acting like hooligans, so let's just focus and try to knock this out. Secondly, two of these filters really surprised me. What's really cool is I have the filters that I purchased last week versus some of these filters that I have from 8 years ago. And you'll see that you got more for your money in the past, without a doubt. Lastly, before we jump into this, I had a comment on the previous video, which were the top 4 filters at Walmart. And the comment essentially was, you're wasting your time, you can't look at filters based on aesthetics, etc. Some of you may not realize, but these filters go through a specific test, and that test is ISO 4548-12. You can see what that means, what the International Organization of Standardization is all about. The thing you have to keep in mind, for example, Mobil 1, which is part of ExxonMobil, and ExxonMobil has a $500 billion market cap, or Supertech, which is Walmart, and Walmart has a market cap of $900 billion. You bet your butt that these numbers are accurate, okay, without a doubt. The whole point with these videos is having everything in one location. So not only can I give you the data, but we can also cut open the filters, and you can see the way that they're designed, how they're engineered, how they're put together, because they're all different, and have everything in one location. So first up is the very popular Fram ExtraGuard. Now, one thing about Fram, and some of you may know this, the parent company recently declared bankruptcy. So First Brands not only are one of their companies Fram, but also Trico wiper blades, Ray Bestos brake parts, Autolite spark plugs, okay? So it is something to note. My guess is there's no way Fram is going away. They may slim it down, they may spin it off. We all remember GM and Chrysler going through this years ago, and they came out a lot stronger. But it is something to note regarding this company, the Fram, the company itself. Now, this is a 95% rated filter at 20 microns. The average human hair is 50 microns, so you're talking very, very small particles. It is rated up to 10,000 miles. The end caps are derived from paper as opposed to metal. Okay, so this is a metal end cap, and here we have paper. The metal core is, or the center core is metal. And the one reason why this is rated at 10,000 miles is because of this. This is the anti-drain back valve. The whole point behind this is when you shut off the engine, this retains the oil in the filter, so the next time you start your vehicle, you don't have a dry start. Years ago, and some of you remember that Fram used to be a 5,000 mile filter. Now it's 10,000 because the anti-drain back valve is silicone. It can last 3 times longer versus nitrile, which is what you find on your cheaper filters and the older Fram filters. So it is something to talk about, to mention. That's one reason why. The thickness of the canister is roughly 0.5, 0.6 mil. I don't have the most sophisticated calipers, but very, very close in terms of 0.5 mil. PSI is 350 regarding the burst pressure. Most filters are 290 to 350 until you get up to Mobil 1 and K&N. These are very, very, very strong filters. But 350 PSI is the burst pressure, made in the USA. So again, $4, 95% efficiency, 10,000 mile filter. I used to use these exclusively years ago. I never had a problem with Fram, but admittedly, I changed my oil. I never go over past 6 months or 5,000 miles. Personally, I never had a problem, ever, with Fram. So one thing to note, but that's what you have with the Fram oil filter. Now, Bosch was a surprise to me. Now, this is $6.68, made in Mexico. This Bosch filter I showed 8 years ago, made in the USA. Same filter, same part numbers, in other words. Made in Mexico, made in the USA. What's the difference? Well, let's first talk about the Bosch filter. Today, again, $6.68. This is now 99% efficiency at 20 microns. It does use a silicone anti-drain back valve, just like Fram. The shell is about the same, 0.55 mil. Could not pick up the burst pressure, but my guess is pretty close to 350 PSI. But again, I just could not dig that up. But look at the construction here. I tend to use Bosch quite a bit today. And when I first saw this, and this is something I wasn't aware of, they used to be a lot cleaner in terms of the build quality. It does use metal end caps and a metal center tube. If you're curious about the bypass valve, it's built into the top, okay? of the end cap. Now look at this. This one is something I showed. You can actually see the video. It's from 8 years ago. Specifically, it's just one video on this Bosch filter. This one is made in the USA. If you look at the can closely enough, the copyright is from 2013 on this one. The newer one is 2021. So maybe that's when they switched to being made in Mexico. So we still have the stamped piece of steel. Okay, this one's a little bit smaller, the one made in the USA. But look at the difference in the build quality. First of all, look at this anti-drain back valve. Look how thick. Look at the difference. Made in the USA, made in Mexico. Now, is Amazon selling just the ones made in Mexico and that's why they're cheaper online? I don't know. In other words, if you bought this filter today locally, is it made in the USA? I have no idea. Is that why you're paying less online? I don't know. But look at the difference. The one made in the USA is way nice. Look at it. Look at the pleating. You don't see any glue overspray. Way cleaner, way cleaner. This was a really big disappointment for me to see. Now, again, am I nitpicking? Yes, but nonetheless, it was way nicer when they built it and made these in the USA. And then we have the Fram ToughGuard. This is up to 10,000 miles. This is up to 15,000 miles. What's the difference? As far as I could tell, it's the same canister, same thickness, same grip on top. I do like the gripping on the Fram. It does help removing and installing the filter. Same bypass valve. Still not using metal end caps. The difference is, well, anti-drain back valve. Okay, same anti-drain back valve. Nothing is changing there. Base plate looks to be exactly the same. The difference is the media. That's the difference you're paying for here. 10,000 on the XtraGuard, 15,000 on the ToughGuard, because the media now is designed, engineered, more synthetic blend for 15,000 miles, which is 99% efficiency at 20 microns. So XtraGuard is 95% efficiency, ToughGuard is 99%. Everything else is the same, as far as I can tell. I can't see any other differences. I measured it, I weighed it, did everything. The only difference is the media. And now the very popular and loved Wix XP. This is $9.89. It is using metal end caps and a metal center core. Again, they use a bypass valve built into the end cap. Very nicely made. This has a 99% efficiency rating as well. Up to 20,000 miles. Now, surprisingly, this is made in Mexico. They used to be made, here's one I have from years ago, used to be made in the USA. They do use a silicone anti-drain back valve, okay? Fully synthetic media. The big difference, and this is just a coil spring to keep everything intact, the big difference years ago, now I don't know if this is for every single filter in the lineup. Years ago, this used to be wire backed. Why does that make a difference? Because if, let's say, for whatever the reason, you don't change the filter, what happens, and this is something I showed years ago, if you don't change the oil, the media starts to collapse. And for those of you that have changed, for example, your furnace filters for your house, you know that they're wire backed. Why? Because if you don't change the filter and you don't have that wire backing, the filter would be sucked into the blower motor and block your furnace from working. That's the whole point for this. If this becomes really nasty and dirty, instead of the filter collapsing, the media collapsing, this retains the media, okay? These are not wire backed anymore. So I don't know if that's specific because every filter here is made for the same vehicle. Is it just because of this vehicle is not wire backed? I did some searching online. It seems like it's not wire backed anymore. It's just not wire backed, and they used to be wire backed for the same price. So not sure what happened there over time. That's certainly a bummer. The burst pressure is a little bit better than the Frams. 363 is the burst pressure, but it's just, unfortunately, it's what are you gonna do? Things change over time. This, by the way, Wix XP is owned by Hummel, in case you were not aware of that. But again, 99% efficiency, just a touch under $10 before tax. Metal end caps, metal center tube, bypass valve sits on top, silicone anti-drain back valve, rated up to 20,000 miles. Again, that's if you're towing, mountainous areas, dusty conditions, stop and go traffic, that sort of thing. That's what you have with Wix. And then K&N. I like K&N. And it's something I talked about in the past. This saved my butt last year when I drove over something on a farm, and the filter was punctured, or I should say it was hit very strongly by a piece of wood, but it didn't puncture. PSI is 550. Look how hard it is to squeeze this. I mean, I can squeeze the rest very easily. This is very, very strong. 550 PSI, terrific for off-roading, terrific for even racing. This is a safety wire insert. And so if you are racing, in case this becomes loose, it doesn't fly off on the track. Safety insert for the wire, a 1-inch nut only for removal. If you use this nut to install, you may crack the welds here, and then you can leak oil. Only for removal. Okay. Now this filter, there was a great deal on these for Cyber Monday at $9. Otherwise, they are $18. Up on top again, we have our bypass valve. What's a little bit different is you find a plastic center core. I don't mind plastic center cores. You find that on many filters, including the Walmart SuperTech. Very nicely made, metal end caps. This is a 98% efficiency filter at 30 microns, rated up to 20,000 miles. Silicone anti-drain back valve. The whole point with K&N that I tend to come across them is at the local parts store. They have a package deal for like $40, let's say, for 5 quarts of synthetic motor oil. And you can choose from, for example, K&N. That's typically when I buy these. I never buy them on their own because they're very expensive. I just like the quality of them. They're very, very strong. But that's what we have here. So wrapping this up, the Frams and the K&N made in the USA. Bosch and Wix XP made in Mexico. Fram ExtraGuard 10,000 miles. The Bosch does not have a mileage recommendation. I never go over 5,000 miles or 6 months, but at a minimum, follow what the recommended interval is based on your owner's manual. Fram ToughGuard is 15,000 miles. Wix and K&N are 20,000 miles. Okay, if you want metal end caps, your Bosch, Wix, K&N is your best bet. Both Frams use a cardboard papers derived material, and that's what we have here. I sort of like doing these because you could see, okay, what kind of bypass valve do they use? Do you like the ones built into the stamped piece of steel versus do you like the ones built into the metal end caps? Every filter here is made for the same vehicle, but look at the sizing. It's completely different among some of them. How thick are the anti-drain back valves? You know, so I like doing these videos. I think it's cool just seeing the construction, but don't forget everything regarding filtration, ISO 4548-12. Thanks for watching.